Hi, I'm Brent Valley, Superintendent of Special Education for the Algoma District School Board. The Algoma District School Board is committed to ensuring a safe and positive learning environment in all of our classrooms. Health and safety is everyone's business. An important part of ensuring a safe and healthy environment is communication. To help with the communication process, we've provided each school with a yellow folder containing 4 separate reporting forms.
Hello, my name is Chris Alfano and I'm the Health and Safety Officer for the Algoma District School Board. Today we're going to talk about reporting forms. Primarily we're going to talk about why we're filling out the reporting forms and how all 4 of the reporting forms can tie in the same incident. Now there's 4 reporting forms that we're going to talk about today. The first one is the Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form. The second one is the Workplace Violence Reporting Form. The third one is the Accident Reporting Form. And the fourth one is the Violent Incident Reporting Form.
Questions are always welcome. We love questions at Algoma District School Board. Please save your questions for the end of this presentation and direct them towards your principal. In the event that there is an unsure answer, the principal always has the option to contact me.
Now let's not waste any time and dig right in.
ADSB Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form. The Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form is to be filled out when a worker witnesses or is involved in an unsafe act performed by a student for which a suspension or expulsion could be considered. The act could be student to student as well as student to worker. If the act is student to worker, a workplace violence form is also required to be completed. If the worker sustains an injury due to the unsafe act performed by a student, then an accident report form needs to be completed as well. Completing the Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form allows for detailed tracking of student behavior. If there is any doubt whether a Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form needs to be submitted, fill it out.
So let's get into the first form, the Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form. At the top left-hand corner, you're going to see reporting number. This is to track how many Safe Schools Incident Reporting Forms a student has throughout the year. As we go further down the form, it asks for the name of the school. Please put the name of your school. The second piece is the name of the student. This lets us know who the student is for tracking purposes. Furthermore, we're asking where the incident actually happened. So there is a checkbox for if the incident happened in the school, could be in the classroom, it could be in the hallway, it could be in the gym. It also asks you if the incident happened outside of the school. This is primarily for field trips. And it goes on further to ask, was it happening in a bus, parabus, taxi cab, etc. The third point is the time of incident. This is very important because we track what time of day, what time of week, what month of the year that these incidents are happening. The fourth point is asking us what type of incident. Now there is a plethora of options that you can choose from, anything from bullying to robbery to selling drugs. However, these might not apply to you. What's good about this form is there's a small white box where you can put detail in regards to the type of incident. As we move down the form to bullet number 5, it's asking who is this form submitted by. This is where you're going to write down your name, your role in the school community, the date, and your signature. Bullet number 6 is for principal's use only. Now the principal is going to look at the situation, and if it becomes a violent incident situation, they are to check off on bullet number 6. Now flip the form on its back. You'll see some information there. Once again, it's asking you for the reporting number. Please mimic the reporting number from the front of the page. Again, it's asking you who the report was submitted by, so you're to write your name down and the time. The next 2 points are for the principal to fill out in conjunction with the staff member. They're asking if the investigation has been completed or if the investigation is still in progress. If the investigation has been completed, this means that the principal has investigated the situation with the staff member. It could be that they've made changes to the safety plan. It could mean that they're taking away some stuff from the safety plan or adding to it. Either way, this means that the principal has consulted with the staff member and other staff in regards to the situation at hand. If the investigation is still in progress, this means that they're still trying to answer some questions. There could potentially be some meetings, and the investigation is near to completion. The last few points of the form are for the principal. The principal must write their name down, sign, and date. Once this has been completed, the form is now done. It should be noted that a staff member is allowed to copy the back page of the Safe Schools Incident Reporting Form. You can keep this copy for your own personal files.
ADSB Workplace Violence Report Form. Workplace violence occurs when one of the below criteria are met. 1. The exercise of physical force by a person against a worker in a workplace that causes or could cause physical injury to the worker. 2. An attempt to exercise physical force against a worker in a workplace that could cause physical injury to a worker. 3. A statement or behavior that it is reasonable for a worker to interpret as a threat to exercise physical force against a worker in a workplace that could cause physical injury to the worker. This includes students as the person exhibiting the physical force, attempt of physical force, or the threat of physical force. When one of the 3 criteria is met, the Workplace Violence Report Form needs to be completed. If an injury is sustained due to the incident of workplace violence, an accident report form needs to be completed as well. If there is any doubt whether a workplace violence report needs to be completed, fill it out.
The next form we're going to talk about is the Workplace Violence Reporting Form. Now, there are a number of different reasons why you would fill this form out. Anywhere from if a student hit you, if a student tried to hit you, or if a student used a comment or threat towards you. Now let's dive into this form. On the top page of the form is information. This is where you're going to fill out your name, the school, your role in the school community, the location of the incident, and the date and time of the incident. Once again, date and time is very important for our tracking purposes. The next portion of the form is identifying the offender. So this is where you're going to identify the student that created this violent incident. You're going to put the name down of the student. You're going to put the grade or the date of birth of the student. The reason why we've incorporated the date of birth is because we have some students that are in our system that are 20 or 21 years old. We're also going to put down whether they are spec ed or non-spec ed. And then we're going to put down whether they're primary, junior, intermediate, or senior. We also want to make sure that we're putting down whether it was an employee, a student, or a visitor. Primarily with this form, it's going to be a student. But who knows, we could get a visitor that comes into our sites that uses these types of antics towards staff members, then we must write down that it was a visitor. Or it could be employee to employee, as much as we don't want that to happen at our board. The next section is identifying the victim. This is where you as a staff member are going to identify yourself. So you're going to write your name down, you're going to write your role in the school community, you're going to write your sex, whether you're male or female, and you're going to write whether you are an employee, a visitor, or a student. Generally, it's going to be that you are an employee because you have been approached by a student, visitor, or fellow employee. The next point of the first page is where a witness is to fill out what he or she may have seen. Now keep in mind, a witness can see something or they can hear something. So whether someone has seen it or heard it, please approach them and ask them to give their description. On the next page, we're looking at the nature of the incident. We're looking at whether it was verbal or physical. If it was verbal, was it a verbal threat or was it a verbal attack? If it was physical, was it a bite, punch, spit, slap, or a number of other different things that could have happened? The next piece of the form we're looking at is, was an injury sustained? If there was an injury sustained, was it your hand, face, leg? There could be a number of different options where you were physically hit. Please fill this out if an employee, student, or visitor made contact with you physically. The next piece of the form asks us, were there weapons involved? Now I can look around a school and find a number of different weapons. A stapler, a ruler, a chalk eraser. If these weapons are being used, please make sure to note that on the form.
Up next,
was this a repeat offender? So maybe this wasn't a repeat offender. Maybe a student did this for the very first time in the school year. Or maybe this is the 5th time the student did it. If that's the case, the student is definitely a repeat offender. The next bullet asks us, were emergency services called? If emergency services were called, please mark yes. If they weren't, simply mark no. The last portion of this form asks you to give a detailed synopsis of what happened. This is an opportunity for you as a staff member to write exactly what happened in the event of this workplace violent incident. Finally, at the end of the form, you as a staff member must sign and date. The principal must sign and date. And finally, the superintendent of that school must sign and date the form.
ADSB Accident Report Form. The accident report is comprised of 4 parts: accident report, worker's statement, witness statement, and medical consent. All 4 parts need to be completed in conjunction with the site supervisor when a worker sustains an injury on school property or off school property during the course of their employment. An example of the latter is if a worker is injured while supervising a class at a public skating facility. If an accident occurs that does not result in an injury to the worker, an accident report needs to be completed. If an injury is sustained due to an incident of workplace violence, an accompanying accident report needs to be completed. If there is any doubt whether an accident report needs to be submitted, fill it out.
Okay, we've made our way to the third form. The third form is the accident reporting form. Now, this means if you've gotten into an accident from work, there are 3 different types of accidents. There's a first aid accident where you haven't went to the doctors or you haven't lost any time. There is a healthcare accident. This means you've went to seek medical. And lastly, there is a lost time accident. So this means that you're going to be losing some time from work. In either of the 3 scenarios, we require you to fill out an accident reporting form. On the first page of the accident reporting form, you're going to give detail of your personal information. This information is used to give to WSIB if it is a healthcare incident or a lost time incident. The second point asks us, will the worker be absent from work due to this incident? Please specify yes or no. Now, sometimes you might not know if you're going to be absent from work. It might just be a healthcare incident. You might go to the hospital and they might tell you you're going to need 3 days off from work. So in that scenario, you might not know right away, but please let us know once you find out. The next portion of the form asks us, when was the date of the accident and the time of the accident? And when was the accident reported and the time it was reported? This is very important as we need to know this information for tracking purposes. The next bullet is lost time only. It's asking when you last worked. It's asking what are your regular working hours, and this is being used for WSIB purposes. We need to know this information so we can get you paid in the proper way. The next bullet is asking us what happened to cause this injury. This is your opportunity to write down a synopsis of the events that caused the injury that you have. The next question is, what part of the body was injured? Could be your arm, could be your face, could be your hand or your leg. Please write down what part of the body was injured. The next portion asks us what type of injury occurred. So what this means, was it a sprain, was it a bruise, or was it a laceration? Please indicate what type of injury occurred. Next up, who was the accident reported to? Always report the accident to your principal. If your principal is not around, please consult with your vice principal. If the vice principal is not around, then please talk to the head secretary.
The next section asks, what was the worker doing at the time of the accident? Please specify in full detail. It goes on to ask if there were any tools, equipment, or objects used. If so, please also specify in full detail.
This is followed by, where did the accident occur? Could occur in the hallway, could occur in the classroom. Wherever it occurred, please write it down. The next portion of the form asks us, were there any witnesses? So, if there's a witness that saw or a witness that heard the incident, please consult with them to write their name down. The next bullet asks us, did the worker seek medical attention? If you sought medical attention, mark down yes. Then we need to know the name and address of the health professional, followed by the date that you sought medical. Next up we have, has the worker had a previous or similar injury? This is a yes or no answer. If you have, please check yes. If you haven't, please check no. The next bullet asks us, was anyone not employed by the board involved in this incident? Now keep in mind, when we talked about a workplace violent incident, a student had hit you. If a student had hit you, that student is not employed by our board. So mark down yes and just write student. We do not need a name. The next bullet is, do you have any reason to doubt if this accident was work-related? This is now again a yes or no answer. If you do check yes, Please explain. The final portion of this form is to be completed by your supervisor. The first piece, the supervisor is going to explain what contributed most to this accident. Next, the supervisor is going to explain what was the reason for these conditions. And lastly, the supervisor is going to explain what they have done to prevent a reoccurrence. At the end of the form, the supervisor will sign and date. Once that has been done, the form has been completed. There are still 3 more forms to fill out in regards to the accident reporting form process. The next one is the worker statement. Once again, you will write down all of your personal information and give a detailed synopsis. This is an opportunity for you to describe what exactly happened. Next, you're going to write down if you have any suggestions on how this accident could have been avoided. And then you're going to write down if there's any witnesses. The final step is to sign and date the form. The next form is the witness statement. This is very similar to the worker statement. Now in the worker statement, if you wrote down a witness's name, they are to fill out this witness statement. The top portion of the form is basically information. Where was the incident? Who was the worker that got injured? The next portion of the witness statement asks whether you saw the incident or whether you heard it. If you saw the incident, what did you see? If you heard the incident, what did you hear? Next, they're asking you, do you know anything else about this incident? This is a yes or no answer. If you check no, you don't have to put anything down. If you check yes, please explain. Lastly, they are asking you, do you have any suggestions on how this incident could have been avoided? This is an opportunity for you to write down those suggestions. The final step of this form is to sign and date. The last form we need to deal with is the medical consent form. Now, the school board is not able to gain any of your medical unless you sign off on this form, so please do so. And that completes all the forms of the accident reporting form process.
ADSB Violent Incident Report. The Violent Incident Report form is to be used when a student performs a violent act that results in police contact and severe discipline, such as suspension or expulsion. If a violent incident report is completed, a Safe Schools incident report needs to be completed as well. If the violent act is directed to a worker, or one of the 3 criteria identifying workplace violence is met, then a workplace violence form needs to be completed as well. If the worker sustains an injury due to the violent actions of a student, an accident report form needs to be completed as well. If there is any doubt whether a violent incident report needs to be completed, fill it out.
Now we've come to the final reporting form of our reporting forms training, the Violent Incident Reporting Form. This form is to be filled out if there is police contact. So your supervisor has contacted the police because we cannot de-escalate the situation internally. The first portion of this form asks you for the student's name and age. The next portion of the form is a description. Please provide a detailed synopsis of exactly what had happened to get us to this point. The next portion of the form is the police contact section. It asks when the police were contacted, the date of the investigation, and the investigating officer. The last portion of this form is the school board's response. They're going to indicate whether this is a suspension, expulsion, or other. Please keep in mind this form is going into the student's Ontario Student Record, in other words, OSR. So they're going to date when they put it in the OSR, and the principal is going to sign. On the reverse of this form, we are given information about the Ontario Student Record in regards to the Education Act.